Income Inequality in Education by Melanie Monta.
Hi everyone, my name is Melanie Monta, and I am here today to talk about something that's very important to me. As you will see as we go through the presentation, I'm a little passionate about the subject. I think that everyone should have access to a good education, especially those in a low-income community that right now don't really have the same access as everywhere else. I've heard a lot of people say things over the years like they do have the same education, and I honestly think that just because those people are unaware of the differences. I've also heard people say things like it's based on property taxes, and the reason why schools in low income communities have less funding is because there is less property there and the property value is less, so the taxes are less. A lot of time in those areas, it's big tenement buildings, so it's either an individual or a company. So the percentage of taxes that they pay is less than if it was hundreds of people owning their own homes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you some options that don't include income. Income doesn't have to have anything to do with a child being able to have access to the education that they need to achieve academic success. I'm going to go through some educational facts because, well, this is an educational video. So, of course, we have to have some statistics and facts. I also had a wonderful interview with the amazing people at Brockton High School. Brockton High School is currently doing some amazing things to help children achieve academic success and be able to get into some really good colleges and have access to scholarships and things like that once they graduate. We're going to discuss some of their secrets, some of the things that have worked for them over the years, some of the things that haven't. We're going to discuss the incredible differences from when they started the initiative to where they are presently. And then we're also going to talk about dual enrollment and how dual enrollment can help a child that wouldn't normally have access to a college education to a college education. And I'm not talking about just giving that education away. There are things that they have to do to earn it, but at least giving them the same opportunity as everyone else to be able to go further in their lives than just high school. So let's get started. First, I figure I should probably tell you a little bit about me and what makes me so passionate about this subject. There's actually a lot of reasons. It started when I was a little kid. When I went to school, I started off in a Catholic school. In my school, we had all the school supplies we needed. The teachers were very caring. They knew who our parents were. They knew us all by name, whether we had them for a teacher or not. And then when I was about 11 years old, I changed schools and I started going to a school in a low income urban community. This school was probably 10 times bigger than the Catholic school that I had gone to. I didn't recognize most of the faces in the hallway. Teachers rarely recognized the students. I mean, maybe if they had them in that class that year, but there were just so many students, you couldn't expect them to remember them all. The books that we had were torn, where when I was in Catholic school, we always had, pristine books. They looked like they were brand new. Now I had pages that were torn or wrinkled, covers that were all torn up or written all over, graffitied. Um, what I learned was the same stuff that I had already learned in Catholic school. It really felt like the school was a lot further behind than I had been before. Um, then, luckily, I only stayed there a year. We moved to a different town, one town over. The town over was the suburbs. And once again, I was in a smaller school. The class sizes were smaller. The teachers knew who you were. They knew everybody by name. They knew the parents once again. There was a lot more parent teacher communication and face to face with the parents and the students, not just in a classroom setting, but because it was also a small community, you would see them outside of school and, people were actually friends with their teachers and, um, the your math teacher might live down the street, Um, the education was harder. It felt like I was a year behind now. It almost felt like I should have gone straight there from Catholic school and I would have been fine. But because I had that year in the urban school that seemed to be behind, it made me behind. Because of that, I struggled when I first started at the suburban school and kind of struggled the rest of the time because I always felt like I was about one step behind everybody else. Um, Eventually, obviously, I graduated from high school. I did not go to college right away. Well, I guess I did go to college right away, but I quit shortly thereafter. Um, couldn't really afford it, didn't really want to go at the time. Got married, had a few kids, and then I woke up one day and I was a single mom with two boys. We had almost no money. Um, we didn't have any stability in our lives. We moved around a lot, mostly because I couldn't afford to pay the rent where we were living. So we would move before we got kicked out. Finally, I was lucky enough to get into low income housing, known as the projects. And I say luckily because even though it was not the greatest place to live, it definitely gave us some stability and allowed for me to save some money. Unfortunately, educationally, it was not the best thing I could have done for my children. They went to a school that was right down the street from where we lived. Most of the school was made up of the kids that lived in the projects and the neighboring towns, I mean, the neighborhoods around us, which were also extremely low income. The class sizes were fairly large, but it was an elementary school, so you did still have a lot of that parent teacher interaction that I had felt I was missing as a teenager. Um, but I remember, I think it was about the third day of school that my kids went there. One of my kids came home and asked me for some help with his homework. So I told him to get his book out because I wanted to go over what he had gone over in class and kind of help him work through the problem. It was math. My son's response was he didn't have his book. Well, of course, being mom, I was upset. Where's your book? You know, you need to bring your books home at night and so on. And my son informed me that there wasn't enough books to go around. Not everybody in his class had a book, so the teacher was taking photocopies of the pages and sending them home as homework. And during class, she was passing out photocopies or having the students share. That was the first time I had ever heard of not having enough books for kids, but I checked with the school, and unfortunately, it was the case. They were doing the best that they could. My kids continued to go to that school for a few years. Over the years, I did have a lot of interaction with the teachers because I'm just that kind of mom. Um, I do know that most of the school supplies that were in the individual classrooms were bought by the teachers, which, if you think about it, is a little ridiculous because teachers don't make a lot of money. So buying school supplies for their classrooms takes away from their own families. So, you know, even with what they buy, it's obviously not enough. Um, Educationally, my my youngest did okay. He's always been a quick learner and picks up things really easily. My oldest son has some learning disabilities, and due to those learning disabilities, had a lot of problems in school. The school did not know how to deal with him, did not have classes set up for him. It was pretty much either put him in special ed classes or put him in mainstream classes. The problem was my son was extremely smart. He didn't need to be in a special ed class. They were much further behind than what he was. My son was actually a little ahead of his class as far as his ability to do math and reading and things like that. Unfortunately, he would get up in class. He had problems concentrating. He couldn't just sit there and read a book and learn that way. He needed to have a discussion about it and actually be interactive when it came to his own learning. As long as he was, then he was excited, he was interested. But when he wasn't, he didn't understand, couldn't comprehend. And because of that, and you know, you add to that that he was a little kid and he was a boy, he would act out and be rambunctious and get in trouble. Um, but instead of learning how to deal with him, what they would do is kick him out of class. Well, if a student's never in class, they're not learning. And I started noticing that my son, who had always read really, really well for his age, was now starting to fall behind his younger brother. Luckily, a few years later, some things happened in my life that allowed me to come up with the down payment for a house. Nothing big, nothing expensive, but I was lucky enough that I found someone's old summer house in a really rich rural community. Normally, I would not be able to live in that community, but because it was a summer house, it was much cheaper than a lot of the other houses there. And it was also built in 1900, which of course helped the price. Um, so we moved there and we went to the school and registered my kids for school. When we went, the counselor was there and helped them pick some of their classes. And then they started talking about electives. I expected that she would talk about the normal electives that schools have, like art, chorus, band, things like that. Um, and of course, the school had those, but then they were also offered equestrian, cross country skiing, and all I could think is, the last school that they went to, which is really only 2 towns over, couldn't afford books for all the kids. But yet this school can afford to stable and maintain horses, buy ski equipment. And I mean, this is only two of the electives that were out of the norm. There were several of them. I was amazed. Um, when my kids started school there, the education was completely different. My kids were a little behind. They needed to catch up, but because of the improvements in the school, there were plenty of books. The teachers knew who everyone was. The teachers had time to spend with the students. Teachers knew how to deal with my son and his disabilities. They knew how to get him excited about work. They would take them outside for science and have them look at the things in nature that they were talking about in the chapter, not just look at them in the book. I mean, who wants to sit there and look at something in a book when you can go outside and see the real thing? And my kids were no different. So after a few years, they did start catching up and they did really, really well. Unfortunately, some other things changed and we moved once again. This time it was a much bigger move. We moved to Florida. We moved to, I wouldn't say a rural community, but I wouldn't say the suburbs either, maybe somewhere in between. Um, the school there was a fairly large school. Um, the parent support for school, to this day, I've never seen anything like it. Um, my youngest son was in band, and school took funding away from band, just like they did across the country at many, many schools. And what happened at this school is the parents stepped in, and the band is now 100 fully supported by the parents financially. Obviously, the band teacher for the school is still the band director, but it is a parent-run organization, and they do not use school funding. And as you probably know, it is statistically proven that kids in band tend to do better in school. Um, Another opportunity my kids had once we moved there was something called dual enrollment. Now, when I first moved there, I had no idea it existed, didn't know what it was. And then I started hearing about it from my kids' friends that were involved in it. And basically, what they were doing was every day during their study halls, instead of just sitting at school in study hall, goofing around, which we all know you're supposed to be doing homework, no one ever does. They tend to goof around. They would go to the local college and they would take college classes. They did not have to pay for the classes. It was fully supported by the school system. Um, they didn't, not just anybody could go. You did have to prove yourself to be able to go. You had to hold a 3.0. You had to be a junior or a senior, in some cases a sophomore. A sophomore could not go during school time. They did have to take either the night or the weekend classes, where juniors and seniors could leave the school and just kind of arrange their schedule around their college schedule. So, like, they were at their high school in the morning and college in the afternoon, or vice versa. Um, I think now, about back when my kids went to that school at the bottom of the projects, if they had stayed there and had continued to go to a school like that, what would have happened? They wouldn't have had the opportunities that they have. They wouldn't have the ability to read that they have. And the ability to read affects everything you do in life. I mean, you can't go out to a restaurant and order a meal without being able to read a menu. You can't take a math test without being able to read the directions or the word problems. You can't do anything scientific without being able to read to be able to study up on whatever it is you're being scientific about. It's really, really, like I said, this is a subject I'm just really passionate about. I get so sad when I think about what could have happened to my kids had they gone to a school like the school at the bottom of the projects their whole lives. And I know that there's so many kids out there that weren't lucky enough to be able to move like we were able to. These kids have no choice but to go to these schools. And it has nothing to do with their intelligence or their ability to learn. It just happens to be, the family and the income that they're born into. Nothing that is by any means their fault. So why should they have less advantages of some other kid that just happened to be born in a better community or to, better income family? Um, what we really need to do is, take a look at things, see where some changes can be made, and really focus on those changes. Um, a great example of that is Brockton High School. I mentioned that at the beginning. Brockton High School in the 1990s was actually called a cesspool by the Boston Globe. I think it was 1994. On the front page of the Boston Globe, they referred to them as the cesspool of places to go to school. The education there was horrific. I grew up around here, so I remember hearing stories about Brockton. You didn't want to go there. It was dangerous. Educationally, it wasn't a good school. Kids from there didn't go on to go to college. Half of them dropped out. Um, and it's not that way anymore. They have gone to now having a dropout rate of 1.4%, something ridiculous like that. Um, Last year, they only had 18 kids that didn't graduate out of over 900, which is incredible. I cannot do them justice, so what I'm going to do is I am going to show you the interview I had with them and let them tell you all about Brockton High School and the changes that they've made themselves.
I'm Denise Glennon. I've been at Brockton High for 8 years. I am a math teacher. I've taught an array of different levels. Like co-taught, I have taught all the levels and will be teaching AP next year. I also am a floor teacher, doing a lot of discipline stuff and really being there to support the safety of the school, as well as a soccer coach. So I have many roles.
I'm Jonathan Shapiro. I'm the science department head, and I've been here for 7 years.
And he's a man of few words. Brevity. Sometimes, yes. Jody Nelson, I'm an instructional resource specialist, one of 2 currently at the high school, and I'm an English language arts teacher. I've been here for 18 years, and I've worn a lot of different hats.
I'm Bob Perkins. I'm the associate principal. I've been here for 38 years, but 4 years in this position.
I just kind of want someone to tell me a little bit about Brockton High School, like what type of students attend at Brockton and what the breakdown is as far as income.
Do you know the numbers on that?
I have some of the numbers.
Yeah.
It's a very diverse high school, and the numbers change a little bit, but we're about 75%, 78% minority population. Depending on who you ask, about 80% of our kids are from low-income families, but the state changed the formula this past year that they're only counting students who are receiving public funds and public support. So I think they have us down now at about 45%, but 80% of our students come from low-income families. We having been here so long, the school has undergone a tremendous amount of transition over the 38 years that I've been here, from the days when it was as long as you came in and did your job, nobody ever bothered you, but that was the focus, just come in and do your job. And back in the 90s, when MCAS started coming in, we found out that we weren't doing a very good job, and on the first MCAS test that we gave, 25% of the kids passed the math test. And I think it was about 40% passed the ELA test. It might be a little bit higher than that, but it's in that ballpark. And that's when we had a wake-up call, when our local newspaper called us the cesspool, and so we had a wake-up call, and basically Brockton High School for the past 15 or so years has been a school about literacy and improving instruction and believing in the kids can do it. And that's where we are right now. And with the population that we have and the success that we've had, it really speaks highly to the work that's been done here.
Do you know where Brockton High School ranked when the initiative to improve academic success started?
We were in the bottom 10 or 15 schools.
And where are you now?
We are, as far as urban schools go, we're right at the top of similar schools that are here, and we've achieved level 1 status. For many years, we were level 1 status once a number of years ago, but then we've pretty much maintained level 3, and this year we've moved back to level 1.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What year was it when Brockton started to make all these changes?
Late 90s.
Late
When it
90s?
first started. If you look at our literacy charts, I believe they say 2004
Right.
is when the literacy went into effect. But
2002.
what's this say?
2002.
2002. Okay. It was around the time that the state went into the MCAS testing and the ed reform, and we got a wake-up call. The first, was it 2003? The first MCAS that counted?
Yes.
2001?
I
2001.
think it's 2003.
Well, by the time the MCAS test counted, we had increased those numbers significantly, so that we were in the mid 60s on the pass rate for math, and in the 80% range for the ELA test, and now our math and science are about 90 to 92% of our kids pass on the first try.
Wow.
And for ELA, it's about 98%.
Wow, that's
So
impressive.
we've come a long way.
Now I'm going to ask each of you a question, if you wouldn't mind answering for me. What is the biggest difference that you see from this school and other places that you've worked or attended if you haven't worked someplace else?
So I've been here for 7 years, and so I did not see the massive transition that you just heard about. But when I came in here, it was very, very clear that there was a singular focus, a singular mission that every teacher understood. Those literacy charts, while they've been up on the walls for 15 years, they're symbols of who we are. And I think that that's really dramatic. When I came in as a department head, it was expected that I would go through the same literacy training that every other teacher and every other new staff member came in to learn. And that's regardless of position. That was key, and that's who we are. And if you ask any member of the high school faculty, what is it that we do? What do we focus on? And it's about literacy. We all know that. We know what that means. We know how it's defined. And we have that singular focus. It's done in every class in ways that are similar but appropriate for the given contexts.
I'd like to build on that. Well, I think the thing that differentiates us from most other places, and I can speak even with in terms of other educational type industries in the dance world, a lot of people bring people in to teach this or this or something else, or to teach the teachers that are in that school. Um, we teach from within. We learn from within. We know that around the table we have the expertise, we have the knowledge of our students, and we make what happens here. Um, we generate it. We generate the solutions here. We know what that we need. We generate the solutions, and it's teachers leading teachers and teachers teaching teachers instead of bringing in the newest guru or bringing in the latest fad. We're about we got it here. What do we need? And let's build it, create it, develop it, monitor it, fix it as needed, and keep it going.
And we don't hope that it happens. It's designed to happen.
It's design, and we recognize if it doesn't happen, and we make and we know that it's not the right solution. We have also learned how to let it go and look
Anything you
for
wanna
something
add?
else.
So I've only been at Brockton High School, but I know some teachers in other districts, and I do, to what they're speaking of, they really do empower staff here to be a part of fixing whatever we feel needs to be improved upon, in taking leadership roles in that nature, as well as you spoke about the literacy charts. So when I came in as teacher, I was in a room, history teachers, English teachers, science teachers, I'm a math teacher, and we're all incorporating the same strategies across every single discipline. So it's really uniform for the students, and they really take well to them.
Can you give me an example of something done in the classroom?
We have active reading strategies. Everyone has activators, closers. We do graphic organizers. There's an array of strategies that we've turned to for the last 15 years that we continue to go back and revise as time changes as well. So those are just kind of a few of the.
When I say I've been here 38 years, I was actually a student here, so I've actually been in this school since 1970. Went away to college and came back, so I'm the old guy in the room. But my experience, you asked about how it was in other schools or whatever. My experience has been here, with the exception of 1 year in Middleborough. I've been here the whole time in my career. But the school, when I started, and the school now are totally different. And we've really adopted the idea that it's all about the kids, and the kids can do it if we show them the way. Too many times we've heard the kids can't do that. Kids can't do that. Well, we've put that to rest. We strongly believe that the kids can do anything that they want, as long as they're shown the way and shown the path. And that's a culture we've had to change here, because teachers always said that kids can't do that, kids can't do that. The kids can and do.
Now, if you had to pick one thing that you guys tried that didn't work, that sticks out in your mind, and then one thing that you guys tried that you thought that ended up working a whole lot better than you guys thought it would. Is there anything that
Yeah,
you
I
can
can
think of?
answer that question really fast.
Okay.
The one big blunder we made, and we see this, we have visitors from all over the country come here, and they all think this is a wonderful idea. In a school this size, it didn't work, but we, back again in the early 90s, 93, 94 time, we decided to make a freshman house. We're a 4-building school, but the buildings are divided up equally with freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And we decided to make a freshman house. Everybody thought it was a great idea. You can deal with those kids. The problems we didn't see were, what do you do the next year with the kids that are repeating their freshman year, and they're the biggest problem. And so what eventually happened, eventually became clear to us, is that the role models for these kids were these kids, the freshmen. And then the ones that were repeating, sometimes 2 or 3 years, were a very bad influence on them because they were in the building at the same time, and they weren't being exposed to the sophomores, juniors, and seniors who were maturing. Uh, so so after about 5 years, we decided this is just horrible. Why do we ever do this to ourselves? And one thing we're good at is when we find something not working, we're willing to say it doesn't work. We're going to abandon it, or it doesn't work, and we're going to redesign it a little bit. This one we abandoned very quickly. And then one thing that we've done successfully that I'm kind of proud of, because I was one of the leaders in this development, was a lot of the things that we did at the beginning were at least at least the idea in people's heads were geared towards the development and the advancement of the ELA side of the school, and not enough for the math science. Even though a lot of those things fit into the math and science, they felt like they were directed towards improving and making developments in the ELA. We did a training and developed a model for reading visuals. We had everybody in the school sit down and look at the math MCAS test, everybody in interdisciplinary groups, and what we heard over and over again was, first of all, the math test is much more of a reading test than a math test. You have to be able to read in order to do well on the test. But the other thing that became very clear is there were a lot of visuals, a lot of graphs, a lot of charts, a lot of tables, etc. And then when science became a testing subject, the same thing. And so we developed a unit on reading visuals where we want the students to be able to look at the visual and understand it before they even get into the question, because we were finding that they were reading the question and then going back and trying to figure it out and not even giving the attention necessary to the visuals. And we adapted that school-wide so that kids are reading visuals in all of their classes. And the first year we did it, we got a boost of almost 20 percentage points in the math tests.
It's a lot. Is inclusion part of your school also?
Yes, absolutely part of the school.
And do you think that it's
When you
working
say
for
inclusion, you mean everybody?
everybody?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
Students with special needs, when it comes to learning, are learning just as well and as quickly as students that don't have any learning difficulties?
I want to say yes to that.
I know it's kind of hard to compare because they
I'm
do learn differently,
I'm
but
not absolutely positive. But when we say inclusion, we truly mean inclusion, because we have a very large life skills population, and maybe not to the same extent, but whenever we do any kind of training or any kind of school-wide initiative, they're included. And it might be at a modified rate, but they're included. And so when we look at those charts and we're writing everything in complete sentences, everybody in the school is doing that. Any of these things that we do school-wide in every discipline, every student, the ELL students, and again, there might have to be some modifications here or there, but everybody's included in what's going on.
We have a very, very small number of students who are in substantially separate classrooms.
Very small.
The great majority, unless someone has absolutely severe special needs, that it would not be appropriate to have them in a mainstream classroom. All of the moderate special needs, and any student who has the ability, and that's, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's dramatic. They are within the mainstream classes with everybody else.
thank you.
And I think that that's absolutely critical.
Now, back at the beginning, I assume that there were probably committees that were set up to figure out things for the different areas. Were those done by subject, or did people just volunteer for the committee that they thought would work best for their skill set?
I don't want to monopolize all this.
An array of different committees. The one that really kind of made this come to fruition is what we have that's called Restructuring Committee. And that meets on one Saturday a month and in the mornings. And it's people from all disciplines, all the way from art to phys ed, math, English, administrators, everyone all over the board, to really sit down and discuss what are the needs of the school and what is a plan in order to create that, to fix it and to implement any new strategies or revisit strategies to deal with all the issues that we find that we have. So that's one of them. But then we also have subcommittees of that committee. So we presently have a civic and social committee that deals with school culture and climate. Every department has a steering committee that focuses on their department as well. So they get the really intense work done for that department. What else do we have? We have so many committees.
I mean, there's so many.
There's
communities.
so
We have
many.
like a school of 42.
So there is an opportunity for someone to really find their niche, or in say if you are a English teacher and you really want to focus on that, you can. But if you want to focus more on school wide, there's that opportunity to do interdisciplinary things for the entire school.
The restructuring committee, I think, is the primary one,
special, yeah.
and there's a lot of other very important committees,
Yeah,
but that it really it controls or develops a lot of the professional development and the training that goes on here. But it's interesting that committee initially started when the state passed the time and learning laws. That was back in the 90s at some point, and we had to have 990 hours of instructional time for students, and so that committee formed because our schedule didn't meet that need at all, and we were begging people to be on that committee at that time. Nobody was interested.
That was my next question. It was
They-
voluntary.
Initially, nobody wanted to do it, but they got enough people together to do it, and then it developed into the professional development, the policy committee, and they started. We had principal who was very interested in collaboration, and that committee started to take on more important roles here, and that's where the literacy came from, and all of the other trainings. And initially it was a struggle to get people to volunteer to do it, but then, and I say volunteer, I think back then it was volunteer, and it turned into the restructuring meets one Saturday a month during the school year, and we do pay people for their time, but most people aren't doing it for the pay because you're not going to get rich on 3 hours worth of pay. But
I spend as much driving to it. As
yeah,
I-
you probably
as I
spend
earn from it.
as much as getting here. But I've been amazed that as it's developed, this year we had 30 people on the committee and we had 65 people apply.
Wow.
So as Denise said, that we try to get a mix of teachers and administrators, and we try to get at least one representative from every department in the school. And it's very popular, and it's sort of a leadership role in the school.
I think it's, there are two aspects. I think one, the diversity of people on it is essential because we're trying to develop things that can be used throughout the school. So it's important to get voices from everywhere, and there's a lack of a hierarchy there. It doesn't matter who's putting forth an idea. They're all of equal value. Everyone has an equal voice. That's very well understood. That's part of the culture of that committee. I'd say the one thing that I think is lacking from that committee that could be added is the student voice. And so that's what I would look to in the future.
Now we've talked a lot about what the students have gotten out of this. As teachers and faculty members, what have you guys gotten out of the changes, especially you, since you were here both? Is it like coming to a different job every day than when you first started? I mean, I know just over the years things have changed, but I mean, has it gone from I'm just going to work to I can't wait to get there and we're gonna do this?
Yes.
Are you more excited now?
Yeah. So when a lot of this started, we have the expression out the door in 2004. There were a lot of people that and I'll tell you what that means. But there were a lot of people who said, what I'm doing is the right thing. It's fine. I don't need all this stuff. But I think as we started to work together and cooperatively, and it became evident that what goes on in music class is just as important as what goes on in the math class, and what happens in the gym is just as important as what happens in the English class. And we started to develop the feeling that we're all in this together. It's not just the English teacher's job to get them to pass the ELA test. It's not the math teacher's job solely to get them to pass the math test. We became a much more cohesive body, I believe, and the, the, the instruction part of the teaching part became different, but in a way it became easier because we were all working towards the same goal instead of just doing your own thing. Because it really used to be, you come in and do your job, you teach your math class, as a math teacher, or whatever class it is, you teach it, and we don't get any calls from parents, and the kids don't complain, and nobody's going to bother you, and that made everybody happy. But it became much more than that, where we focused on our evaluation of teachers differently. We focused on the evaluation of the kids. We were looking at a lot of data, and it just felt like we were all in this together rather than you're in your classroom and what you do is your own business as long as you don't give anybody any problems.
Are the parents in the community involved, and have they been since the beginning?
No and no.
No and no.
I guess it's not quite that cut and dry. Part of it is you have to look at the kind of community that we are. Many, because of the low income, many of the parents in this community are working 2 and 3 jobs. A lot of our kids go home in the afternoon and they have to raise their brothers and sisters. So it's not unusual, I believe, to say we don't have an awful lot of parent involvement. But we do have a good number of parents who really do care about what's going on in the school and how their kids are progressing. But being we have a large number of ELL kids, and while we try to make it accessible, it's cultures and other reasons, a lot of parents aren't involved, and they never really have been. But we do have pockets of parents who are very influential and important to what goes on. We have a very small our school council, and we try to communicate with them as much as possible. But I guess it depends on what you mean by involvement. But I think the parents truly care about what goes on here, but they're not real supportive as far as doing things. Although Parents' Night, we have a pretty good number.
But they don't have like committees or anything like that are involved
We
in
have the
process.
school council,
Okay.
but it's like pulling teeth to get
The
people
parents,
to be part of that.
don't tend to be the driving force of school change here as they are often in other types of communities. More involvement would be wonderful. And I think that's another area that we can do. We can try to recruit more assistance and more of an active role. But it's certainly a challenge that we face.
Now, have you noticed at any time where it seemed like you were going back into the same old rut and you guys had to pull yourself out again, or has it been continual progress since the beginning?
No, I think there are times when we say we have to revisit this or look at it again. But I saw Denise shaking her head too. I don't think I've ever felt like we're going back into the same old rut. We're always trying to add and improve. We're trying to improve on what we're improving. I don't see it ever going back to where it was, and the laws won't let us take it back there. I mean, there's many laws in the state now that force us to continue progress, but we're reevaluating things often and doing things a little bit different, but never. I don't think going backwards would ever.
Okay. Do you guys have any particular, I know you probably can't give names or anything, but like a particular success story that you think is directly related to the program? Like, especially since you were here when it started, somebody that was really, really struggling and you guys started implementing the things and you could, especially with that student, really see like the light bulb come on and things change for them.
I think it's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
hard
there's
to
so
it's hard to
many of
miss
them.
that.
Yeah.
We see it in when on graduation day, kids get their diploma and then they walk by a line of probably 50 teachers who are there to shake their hands and congratulate them, and the kids are practically jumping into their teachers' arms to say thank you for believing in me. And when we talk to students about the literacy strategies that are implemented in all of their classes, they don't necessarily enjoy doing some of the various activities, some of the writing. I mean, that's not every kid's favorite activities to write a long essay. And when I talk to them about why we're doing it, the history of Brockton High School that predates them, they don't know the school that we've been alluding to. They were infants,
We're not even born. At
or
this
not
point.
even born. And when we talk to them about the process that they're undergoing, and then they say, "Yeah, we don't really like doing that." And I'll ask them about, what do you think about its effect on you and your ability to succeed? And they say, "Oh my God, I'm so happy that we did that, because I can now write these essays in this way and be very successful." And so I think that without singling anybody out, I don't think that we need to do that. I think the vast number of kids that we've been able to reach like this is really profound.
Yeah, I think it happens with so many kids, just with providing them with the supports that they did not have before here, whether that be through counseling with adjustment counselors, or really getting them some kind of mentorship. We've so many kids who maybe fail out their freshman year and end up graduating on time. There are a lot of kids who that happens to, so we can't really just say there's one particular. There's so many that we turn around as a team. So
And I think it affects all kids. Two very quick stories. Uh, Before we did reading visuals, we actually years ago did a school-wide initiative on graphing alone, and just had kids graphing in every class. And that year we got again a huge bump in our math scores. And the Boston Globe sent a reporter here, and the principal at the time said to me, "Go with these kids and just make sure the reporter is asking appropriate questions. So you don't have to answer any questions; the kids can answer them." And they knew that we had done a focus on graphing, and the reporter said to the kids, "Were you graphing in all your classes?" "Yes." "Did you like it?" "No, we hated it. We hated it." "Well, did it help though?" "It helped us a lot on our tests." So the kids are aware of a lot of these things that are going on and how they help. And then they're probably sick of hearing me tell this story, but we had a climate here where if you didn't do well in the class, the next year you moved down a level, and kids just kept moving down and down and down. Where our bottom level, we got to the point where our bottom level of kids was our largest group of kids, and it really should have been our smallest group, the kids that truly needed the remediation and the help. And we changed our policy that you couldn't move up or down a level unless you had departmental approval. So the kids that weren't working hard didn't get to move down just because they weren't doing the work. It was a matter of, can they do the work? And my last year as department head, I had over 300 applications for kids to change their level, and 2 of them would have moved down. The rest of them would have moved up. So we really have affected all kids here.
And do you remember what the approximate graduation rate was before?
No, I don't, but I know our dropout rate now is like 1.2%.
Wow,
And it was much higher than that.
that's really, really
years
low.
ago. It's really low. We had 987 graduates this year, and about 18 who didn't qualify to graduate. And probably half of those, or maybe even more than half of those, because they haven't passed the MCAS test yet. And then the rest of them just hadn't met requirements, but we'll get them through the test, and some of them will go to summer school and make up the courses. But in a school of this population, to have about 18 that don't graduate is phenomenal, I think.
It really is. You guys should really be proud of yourselves. You've definitely worked hard. I lived here a long time ago, so I remember what Brockton was like when I was growing up. I grew up in Rhode Island, but you still heard stories about Brockton. And coming back a couple months ago and taking the classes that I have, I've been watching a lot of speakers and stuff like that. And Brockton High School just kept coming up over and over and over again. So it made me kind of look into it more because, like I said, all I knew was the Brockton of old. And the differences are incredible. And you guys have definitely worked hard for that. And I hope that you feel the appreciation that I'm sure that a lot of the parents have, even if they don't come in and tell you so.
I never ever in 38 years have felt nervous or uncomfortable about walking into this building. But when I first started working here for years, people would say, "How can you work there? How can you go there?" And you may have even heard it. I don't know, but
I've always gotten
awful, and I still get it
I still get
every
it.
now and then now, but not anywhere
not-
near the extent that I used to. And a lot of people say now, "Wow, you guys are doing some really good things there." So.
Hello again. I really hope you enjoyed everything the people at Brockton High School had to say. I know I was certainly impressed. But I don't feel right talking about Brockton High School or their initiative for academic success without bringing up the person that started all. She was the principal when it all started. Her name is Susan Zakowitz. And here's a little clip that tells us a little bit more about her and Brockton High School and how the initiative started.
I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, my girl.
Meet Susan Zakowitz.
Girl, my girl.
Outstanding. Yes. Thank you. Oh, Faith. Oh, my God. That is hideous. Congratulations. Excuse me.
Dr. Zakowitz is principal of Brockton High School, located in the working-class town of Brockton, Massachusetts.
Crossroads of the world. Hi, guys.
Over 4,000 kids attend her school, making it the largest in New England.
We are about 71% minority, or students of color, which is very diverse. We're an amazing, we represent the world. We're also about 71% free and reduced price lunch.
I think you forgot to stop at Hogan.
So the kids face a lot of poverty.
Just double check that, though.
A lot more tweaking.
This high school is a shining example of just how far Massachusetts schools have improved over the past decade.
Tell me what it's going to do.
If it hits, if the front bumper gets hit, it'll back up, turn around, and you can keep controlling it. And then
The first year of the MCAS, when we would say, oh, we're a great school, when we got those scores back, we had 44% fail the English and 75% fail the math. So we were in trouble.
MCAS are the standardized tests that were created in response to the Massachusetts Education Reform Act of 1993, and all students in Massachusetts public schools are required to take them yearly.
And then it actually got worse before it got better. We sort of thought, well, at least it will go up. And actually it went down to 76% failure the next year.
Number one, you have all the information you need.
In Massachusetts, if you don't pass the MCAS, you don't get a diploma. There are no exemptions to that in Massachusetts. So we're going to have a graduating class where only 25% of the kids get a diploma. That's unacceptable. So we were school in trouble 10 years ago.
You do the problem. You show me.
Today, 93% of Brockton High School students pass the MCAS in English and nearly 80% in math.
One more minute now, folks. You have to finish up, and then you're moving on to your next problem to solve.
There's a scholarship in Massachusetts called the Adams Scholarship for students who have scored in the top 25% of the test takers. And 249 of our seniors receive that scholarship, which entitles them to 4 years full tuition at any Massachusetts State College or University. That's awesome.
Oh, I know, but you're
In 2006, they received a National School Change Award. So how did they do it?
Hard work, hard work, hard work on the part of everybody. But I can actually specify a couple things that made a big difference in the school. What was a common practice, and still is, I think, in many schools, is the test is in English and math, so let's give them English all morning, math all afternoon. But here's the way we went at it. Rather than taking away what the kids love, we infused those skills that the kids need into the classes that they love. So, for example, right now the students are doing open response writing and graphing in preparation for the MCAS. But those are skills that everybody uses. We trained all the teachers in how to teach kids how to do it, and then we had the teachers in that subject area use their own content, but follow the same format to teach that skill. As an example, our music director, he was trying to teach them you need perfection in music. So he allowed them to play a piece where they hit a wrong note. They had to chart it. They analyzed what did it look like on the chart, what was the impact. The kids were analyzing, they were using charts and graphs, they were writing, but what were they using? The content that they loved. And let me just tell you, when the kids go into those classes, they're happy. So let's take advantage of their excitement about the class. How do you infuse these skills that the school deems important? They are the important skills that a kid needs to be successful in the 21st century, and bring them to where the kids see the relevance of them. And it's worked for us.
We're going over these questions basically because participation, I want you all to participate. Also because of the election that's going on currently.
Dr. Zakowicz is the first to admit that there were challenges along the way. There were doubts as to whether the approach would work, and some resentment about proposed changes in instruction among staff and students.
I'm a believer in that sometimes you have to do it without the buy-in. We knew it was the right thing to do. And so here's when we got the buy-in. We launched this huge writing program, and there was grumbling. The kids, the teachers were, and I was nervous because you don't know if it's going to work or not work, and you present this confident front and say, I think this is going to work and the kids are going to improve their scores. Well, here's what happened. We did this over from October right through to the testing. Then we don't get the scores back in Massachusetts for the test till the fall, so we had no idea. And then in the fall, we got a call from the Commissioner of Education's office, which made me nervous because whenever the commissioner calls, you get nervous. And he called himself to say, I'm coming to Brockton High School. You are the most improved high school in the state. Now let me tell you what happens with buy-in. You have it.
In the first video with Brockton High School, they talked a lot about the literacy charts they had on the wall. So I wanted to share those with you. Unfortunately, they were about 5 feet above my head, so it is kind of at an odd angle, and I do apologize for that. I also apologize that I'm going to read to you what's on there. I understand that you can read yourself, but with the angle, I didn't want you to miss anything, and because I think they're such an important part of why Brockton High School has changed so much and become the awesome school that it is now.
Literacy chart reading. For content, both literal and inferential. To apply pre-reading during reading and post-reading strategies to all reading assignments, including determining purpose and pre-learning vocabulary. To research a topic. To gather information. To comprehend an argument. To determine the main idea of a passage. To understand a concept and construct meaning. To expand one's experiences.
Literacy chart reasoning. To create, interpret, and explain a table, chart, or graph. To compute, interpret, and explain numbers. To read, break down, and solve a word problem. To interpret and present statistics that support an argument or hypothesis. To identify a pattern, explain a pattern, and/or make a prediction based on a pattern. To detect the fallacy in an argument or proof. To explain the logic of an argument or solution. To use analogies and/or evidence to support one's thinking. To explain and/or interpret relationships of space and time. Literacy chart speaking. To convey one's thinking in complete sentences. To interpret a passage orally. To debate an issue. To participate in class discussion or public forum.
to make an oral presentation to one's class, one's peers, one's community, to present one's portfolio, to respond to what one has read, viewed, or heard, to communicate in a manner that allows one to be both heard and understood. Literacy chart writing. To take notes, to explain one's thinking, to argue a thesis and support one's thinking, to compare and contrast, to write an open response, to describe an experiment, report one's findings, and report one's conclusion, to generate a response to what one has read, viewed, or heard, to convey one's thinking in complete sentences, to develop an expository essay with formal structure. Imagine walking into your first high school English class and finding out that there's not enough books for all the students, and the books you do have are torn and tattered. Now imagine seeing your cousin or your friend that's in the same grade but happens to live in a different school district, not only has a book, but also has a tablet to do their homework on. Or what if you found out that because you live in an urban area, the teachers at your school earn less, so in order to still fill the positions, they hired teachers that didn't really major in the subjects they teach? Doesn't sound very fair, does it? Well, it isn't. But this is a reality that a lot of students face every day. In low-income communities, the inequality in education starts before a child goes to school. Their parents usually have to work more, so they don't have time to do things with them like read or teach them to do simple math equations. Unfortunately, once these children start school, the inequality issue does not improve. The resources and funding available don't allow for some schools to have the same materials and equipment as other schools. But yet these students are still expected to do just as well. Not just on things like standardized tests, but they're supposed to be able to compete for scholarships and gain admission to good competitive colleges. After that, we expect these same people to thrive in the real world. How can we expect that if they don't have the tools they need to succeed?
Next, we're going to hear a little bit from Pedro Noguera. He is a professor of education at NYU, tenured in the departments of teaching and learning, humanities and social sciences at the Steinhardt School of Culture, Education, and Development. He's the executive director of the Metropolitan Center for Urban Education and co-director for the Institute of Study of Globalization Education in Metropolitan Settings. He has also authored 7 books and 150 articles and monographs. He is also a commentator on CNN for educational issues, as well as public radio and other national news outlets. Noguera was also appointed by the governor of New York to serve as a trustee for the State University of New York, as well as many other things that make him quite an authority on the subject of education. So let's hear what he has to say.
Well, poverty impacts student achievement in a variety of ways. The most obvious and important is the instability it creates in children's lives. Children who don't have stable and secure housing, children who are not eating regularly, children who don't have access to good health care, and who have other needs not being met, social, psychological needs, basic needs like being able to see a dentist or get eyeglasses. All those things impact learning, impact a child's development, and invariably will undermine efforts to achieve and to learn in school. And I think we don't pay nearly enough attention to that, even though it seems obvious. But in a country with very high poverty rates, much of which is concentrated in particular communities, both urban and rural, poverty is still largely ignored as a social problem and as an educational challenge in America today. And I often say that given our focus on the achievement gap, we should be much more concerned about poverty and how it impacts children and the way it impacts schools. Because schools that are serving large numbers of impoverished children are usually the schools that are struggling the most. And they struggle because often they're overwhelmed by the needs of the children and lack the resources to meet those needs. Well, poverty impacts student achievement in a variety of ways. The most obvious and important is the instability it creates in children's lives. Children who don't have stable and secure housing, children who are not eating regularly, children who don't have access to good health care, and who have other needs not being met, social, psychological needs, basic needs like being able to see a dentist or get eyeglasses. All those things impact learning, impact a child's development, and invariably will undermine efforts to achieve and to learn in school. And I think we don't pay nearly enough attention to that, even though it seems obvious. But in a country with very high poverty rates, much of which is concentrated in particular communities, both urban and rural, poverty is still largely ignored as a social problem and as an educational challenge in America today. And I often say that given our focus on the achievement gap, we should be much more concerned about poverty and how it impacts children and the way it impacts schools. Because schools that are serving large numbers of impoverished children are usually the schools that are struggling the most. And they struggle because often they're overwhelmed by the needs of the children and lack the resources to meet those needs.
Your future may not look much brighter if you happen to live in an urban community. These schools face the same lack of materials and equipment and also have inadequate teaching staff. And those staff members, though dedicated, don't always have an education on par with teachers at smaller schools in more rural or suburban areas. Nearly half the students from urban communities have some sort of reading deficit, and without this necessary skill, will not have the opportunities they might have had they just been able to read a little bit better.
My name is Cedric Forte. I'm a junior at Heritage High School, 425.
My name is Jackson Langvort. I'm 18-year-old and I'm a senior at McLean High School. For academic subjects, I'm in Advanced Placement Literature,
English,
Advanced Placement U.S. Government,
Biology,
and Comparative Government,
Art,
Advanced Placement Music Theory,
Health,
Geosystems for Science,
and Algebra.
Men's Chorus,
What's it?
Leadership, and Technical Theater. So I drive and I get here half an hour before school starts every day, just for the fun of it. Trying to park here, if you come in at normal time, is really awful. You end up parking like half a mile away.
A lot of students who go to a school all the way across town have to catch 2 and 3 buses in the subway just to get to school. And I think that, you know, if we have to travel that far just to get education, then we should be able to travel for free.
The kids here are motivated in just about everything. They're motivated to even learn, which is scary to hear for a high school kid. They're motivated to succeed in sports, extracurriculars, anything.
I think they've lost the will to learn. A lot of them. They just don't find school interesting no more because they don't have the power to do anything, and they say so in the classrooms.
This is our auditorium and theater. We have lights, standard light sound. It's not particularly high tech, but we have a nice system.
Here, go to the metal detector. Like, they use this to try to, you know, keep school safe, but obviously it doesn't work because, like, even when someone walks through and it beeps, like, they don't even search them or anything. They just say, okay, walk back through, empty your pockets. That's all they do.
This is our new studio. It's one of 3 high schools in the county who has it. Hey, orchestra, can you start playing? Okay. It's all kids. It's all run. It's all performed. It's all produced by kids.
Well, one thing that these walls, like, they really need to be repainted because of the graffiti. As you can see here, they tried to repaint it, but it doesn't blend in. You can actually tell they just, like, really just gave up on repainting the walls. So every teacher in this school buys their own school supplies. And it's actually very sad because, like, the school system should have money to, you know, provide for those school supplies for students, but they don't. And the teachers have to come out of their paychecks just to, you know, be able to support their students.
That's our observatory. It's a giant dome with a telescope, and you could see the entire sky from there. If every school in the country can be like McLean, I think it's really going to increase standard of living, just going to make things a lot better.
Obviously, it's not fair. I mean, we have not even half of what they have. I mean, we're all students. Why shouldn't we receive the things that they have? I mean, we're all trying to learn. We all want to grow up to be something, so why shouldn't we receive the same advantages they have? I don't understand that.
Inequality in education is real. It is a problem and it needs to be dealt with. Every person that steps into a school has the right to expect the same level of education as the other people in their communities, cities, or countries. If something as small as staying in school an extra year or having basic reading skills can do so much for the individual student, imagine what it can do for all of us as a whole. This is not just a problem for educators to solve. This is a problem we all need to work together to end, because when we do, life will be safer and more secure for all of us.
Growing inequality is hitting children around the world in many areas of life, including household income and education. We often hear about increasing wealth among the top 1%, but far less attention is given to the increasing gap between the bottom 10% and the middle, bottom-end inequality. UNICEF's latest Innocenti report card, Fairness for Children, gives us a detailed look at inequality in 41 wealthy countries. The result? Rich countries are failing the bottom 10% of children. Since the economic crisis, income gaps have increased in most rich countries, 19 out of 37, and only 4 countries saw household income at the bottom increase faster than the middle. In the 19 of the 41 rich countries, a child at the 10th percentile has less than half the disposable household income of the child in the middle. Children from homes with the lowest household incomes are also more likely to have poor outcomes in education. The proportion of 15-year-olds falling below reading, math, and science minimum proficiency is as high as 28.6% in Bulgaria, compared to just 3.2% in Estonia. And though gaps in reading achievement have narrowed in a majority of rich countries, 2 of the wealthiest, Belgium and France, are found at the bottom of the report, with large achievement gaps. These issues drastically affect children's life opportunities and their ability to succeed as adults. Inequality is hitting children right now across the developed world, in your country. There's so much outrage about the accumulation of wealth among the richest, but it's time to address how growing inequality makes families at the bottom slip further away from a decent life in the middle. More equal societies dramatically improve all children's chances in life. These nations have less child poverty and better educational achievement. Children are also healthier and happier overall. Let's put the most vulnerable children at the forefront of efforts to build a more equal world.
We've talked a lot now about what can be done in elementary, middle, and high school to help better prepare these children for academic success. But I bet you're wondering now, what can we as higher education employees do to ensure that these kids get some sort of college education? The thing that I've had the most experience with is dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is incredible. It was something that they did have in one of the towns that I live in, and I also happened to work for the college that the children went to campus to take their classes at. It was in Okaloosa County, Florida, and the children would go to their high school during the day. It was mostly 11th and 12th graders that were in dual enrollment, but some sophomores could do it. There were very specific rules. Sophomores could not go to the college during their school time. They would either have to take night or weekend classes, or summer, of course. There were a couple of the schools where the teachers went right to the school. In that case, the sophomores could attend because they were not missing any regular classes. They would just go to their college algebra class rather than their regular algebra class. These students had the opportunity to take these classes because of their grades, so it was based on their hard work. They did have to have a 3.0 in order to be able to attend the dual enrollment program, and if at any time they went under a 3.0, they were no longer allowed to attend. If they wanted to take some online classes, they did have to get permission to do that. Not every student could take an online class. Online classes, as you probably know, takes a little bit more discipline than an in-class setting. So usually the students that were allowed to take online, it was because they had already taken a few classes in the in-class setting and had proven that they were good students and that they could handle it, that they were organized, and that they showed that they should be able to handle the online experience. Again, it was every time they took an online class, so they couldn't just get permission the first time and then continue to take them online. They had to get permission every single time. So if at any time the online classes looked like they weren't, helping the student the way that they should, they just wouldn't be allowed to take them online anymore. The school department did pay for these classes, which was an amazing thing. It gave the opportunity for a lot of students that wouldn't normally have the money to get a college education. It gave them the ability to do so. They could graduate from high school with their high school diploma as well as an associate's degree. In Okaloosa County, like I said, that is where I know the most. I can tell you that as far as how the payments went, this is quoted from one of the policies. It says, school districts shall pay the standard tuition rate per credit hour from funds provided in the Florida Education Finance Program to the institution providing the instruction when such instruction takes place on the post-secondary campus to cover instructional and support costs incurred by the post-secondary institution. When dual enrollment is provided at the high school site by post-secondary institution faculty, the school district shall reimburse the costs associated with the proportion of salary and benefits and other actual costs of the post-secondary institution to provide the instruction. So basically, as I said, the classes were covered by the school. If they came to the college themselves, the school department in Okaloosa County would pay full credit, full price per credit. But if the teachers went to the high schools themselves, which a lot of them did because it was cheaper, then they just basically had to pay the teacher and any costs that were incurred by having the teacher on their site. There was a clip I found on the Today Show that gives a really, really good example and kind of definition of what dual enrollment is. So I would like us to take a look at that.
This morning on Today's Classroom, getting a jump start on college while you're still in high school. Each year, more than 1 million students do it by taking advantage of dual enrollment programs. Here with more is Margaret Spellings, the former U.S. Secretary of Education, and Catherine Cohen, CEO and founder of IvyWise and ApplyWise.com. Ladies, good morning to both of you. Nice to see you. So basically, you're in high school, but you're taking college courses. It sounds like in this economy, one advantage to that is you can save a little money because you're getting fixed costs. Is that right?
Absolutely. You know, I've met kids who got an associate's degree, a licensing degree in nursing or whatever, at the same time they got a high school diploma. So it's a great way to make college more affordable.
No, wait, you're taking college courses. Does that mean that the college credit applies only at the college if you go on to that particular school, or do they transfer to other schools?
Well, that depends, and that's one of the things that parents and students really need to be careful about, because sometimes it'll transfer, but not always. So it's kind of a little bit of a buyer beware when it comes to that issue.
If you're, first of all, only seniors, or can sophomores and juniors start with these?
Any and all, typically juniors and seniors.
Yes.
So you go to this actual college, or do you take these online, or does a professor come to see you at high school?
Any of that.
Really? That many options?
Absolutely. And it varies by state or locality. Check with your local school district or your school. But whether it's advanced placement, which is on 60% of our high school campuses, or the professor coming to you, or you going to a community college, any of those models really are available.
Let's say this is not about transferring credits or getting credits toward your college degree. Then what are the advantages of a high school student actually taking part in something like this?
Well, a college really loves to see you enhance your academic profile. So if you're going off campus to take a course that you're interested in, let's say Russian history or business ethics or something like that, then that really looks good to a college when you apply. And I think it also helps the transition to college, because you have the experience of being in a college class, in a college setting. You're being judged like college kids, so you're going to be more ready to attend college.
Let me play devil's advocate, though, for a second. High school is tough. I mean, it is a stressful time for a lot of students, and then college gets harder. So if we're already pushing them to take, or if we're already asking some of them to take college courses while they're still in high school, are we pushing some students too far too fast?
Well, that can be the case, really, but Matt, we've found that a lot of kids who drop out really are bored in high school. They aren't finding their work to be challenging enough, and for kids who haven't really maybe thought about college as an option for them, this is a great way for them to get a taste of what college might be like.
Can't they do that with AP courses? Are they the same thing?
Well, they're different. They're test-based courses like AP, but these are classes where they're taught at community colleges often, or the faculty comes to the high school.
Okaloosa County is obviously not the only place that has dual enrollment. It happens to be where I lived and worked, so of course it's the place I feel most comfortable talking about. But in August 2015, PBS did a series about school, and one section was about an early college education program started at a school on the Mexican border. And although they do not refer to it as dual enrollment, it is a program that consists of students obtaining their associate's degree while attending high school, just like the dual enrollment program. The part that I personally found most interesting was when they spoke to one of the students' older siblings that had graduated before the program was started at her school. They show her now as an adult out of high school, trying to help her single mom support their family. So let's take a look and see if you think the differences between the opportunities available to the younger and the older sibling are as great as I found them to be.
We continue our series, Rethinking College, Closing the Graduation Gap, with a story about a unique experiment on the border of Mexico. There, a high school district and a local college have combined forces to dramatically increase the number of college graduates in the region. Hari Srinivasan reports.
When Superintendent Daniel King walks the halls of his South Texas high schools,
how's it going? How are you guys doing?
He's not focused on the fact that nearly all of his students live in poverty.
Good morning. Breakfast?
Or that almost half learned English as a second language. What King talks about almost exclusively is college.
Have you started college classes already?
Yes.
In a district on the Mexican border where most adults have no college education, Daniel King is intent on ensuring that their children get one before they even leave high school.
What are you going to study?
In the medical field.
In the medical field. Any idea what yet? Or?
7 years ago, King's district, Far San Juan Alamo, partnered with South Texas College to offer classes for free to all 8,000 plus high school students.
It brings a lot of purpose to high school because college becomes something concrete for them. Are you going to have an associate degree? Or? These students, have the potential to leave here with 2 years of college under their belt. So that's a big economic savings.
This May, nearly 500 seniors graduated with a 2-year college degree or certificate.
You're going to start this summer?
And more than 3,000 high school students were enrolled in college courses.
By 2018, our goal is to have 50% have completed an associate degree or certificate by the time they graduate from high school.
The cultural shift in this border region has been so swift, it's changing expectations within families.
That would be the psychology one, right?
Stephanie Castellanos heard about early college while still in middle school.
I said, if it's being offered and it was like the trend, college for free, let's do it.
In May, Castellanos graduated 5th in her high school class with 60 college credit hours and a 2-year associate's degree. It was a different story for Stephanie's older sister, 24-year-old Alex Castellanos, who attended high school just a few years earlier.
When I was there, they didn't have the early college. So when they offered it to her, we were all, saying to go for it because I didn't have that chance.
Their mother, Yvonne Castellanos, raised Stephanie and her siblings after their father, who worked for the Border Patrol, was killed by gunfire in Mexico while off duty. Alex Castellanos took on a job at the dollar store after high school, a place where she and her mother still work.
My mom, she was already a single mom, and I felt like it was my responsibility. I had my 2 little ones, my brother and my sister, and I would help, I had to work to help my mom out too.
She enrolled in community college, but soon dropped out when she found work and school too much to juggle.
It's not easy to pay your bills and having to pay your school.
Now the family is focused on Stephanie's future.
She's going to be my first kid to go in, so we are excited. It's her dream. Everybody's dream.
I have to be a role model for my little brother. I have to go on to college.
Tell me how you created that circuit.
But how do students handle the extra work? Is high school made easier? Are college courses watered down? Joel Vargas, who works with early college programs across the country, says the opposite often happens.
Give you about 2 more minutes, guys.
It encourages these young people to step up their game. And I think too many of our high schools are sort of structured with kind of minimal expectations, and you reap what you sow in that regard when you set the bar low.
The courses are definitely more rigorous than the regular high school classes.
The relationship between the prize.
You have to learn about discipline. You have to learn to study, and it's just a matter of knowing what you're getting into.
The hypothesis is false.
Samuel Freeman, a political science professor at nearby University of Texas Pan American, has taught and advised many early college learners from the district.
The vast majority of them are not ready emotionally or intellectually.
He says high-achieving students like Castellanos may do well, But many early college students arrive on campus without the emotional maturity to handle high-level coursework.
What happens to many of these early college students when they get here and they walk in their first day of class and they're in junior and senior level courses is they do not have the critical and analytic thinking skills. They do not have the reading skills. They cannot handle the reading load. They don't have the writing skills. They cannot write.
And I'm only going to have one resistor in series in this circuit, right?
Physics teacher Gregorio Gasa has a different view. He thinks early college prepares students for higher education.
A lot of the students that graduate from high school, if they don't go through the rigor of these AP dual credit classes when they're in high school, then what happens to them? It's a rude awakening once they get to college, and then a lot of them, you know, they don't end up making.
How can districts afford this idea? I mean, how can you have college classes inside high school classrooms for free?
The state of Texas has good policies in this regard. The state will pay both colleges and high schools. In a way, they get a twofer.
How many college hours are you going to have by the end of this semester?
The way Superintendent King sees it, K-12 education in America should be restructured.
What we're doing is we're bridging high school and college. We have this drastic transition from a system where students get handed right off smoothly to middle school and then on to high school, to college, where all of a sudden it's sink or swim.
Oscar Plaza, Stephanie Castellanos' economics professor from South Texas College, agrees.
Most of these students are first-generation college. You have to realize that. So for them to see that path from the very beginning and make that path visible, I think is very important. And that is a big change.
Stephanie Castellanos says she's ready for the challenge. She'll be attending the prestigious University of Texas at Austin this fall and hopes one day to be a lawyer.
I see it as an opportunity to do more for my family. After college, I plan to graduate and come back. My family is my #1 priority. I want to give them a better life. I mean, obviously, my mom, they moved over here from Mexico to give us a better life. I just want to do the same. I mean, everything I do is definitely for her.
So far, more than 95% of the students who graduated FAR San Juan Alamo District with an associate's degree have gone on to pursue their bachelor's. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Hari Srinivasan.
When I lived in Florida, dual enrollment was huge. Everybody knew about it. All the high schools were involved in it. The local community colleges were involved in it. It wasn't just the county I lived in. It was the counties around me. It was most of the state of Florida, as far as I know, and a good portion of Alabama, because I lived right on the Alabama line. AP classes were offered in every school. Excuse me. I honestly didn't know that AP classes weren't offered at every school because it would never been an issue in the South. And I moved there in 2003 and recently moved back November of 2015. Shortly after I got back, I was on Facebook just kind of, fiddling around like everybody does. And I noticed one of my friends posted that she didn't know where to bring her daughter to take an AP class. They had to find out what school it was offered at. And I responded a little confused because it was offered at every school, wasn't it? Well, I guess that's not the way it is here. There are only certain schools, at least in the state of Rhode Island, that offer it. Only certain subjects, and dual enrollment, and collegiate high school, which is another thing that was offered in college. In Florida, were just not heard of here. Nobody did them. Nobody was involved in them. And I have not heard of any community college in the area that does dual enrollment since I've been back. Now, I could be wrong. I'll be honest. I have not checked out every community college in the area. But I have a lot of friends with kids that are graduating from high school, and none of them were able to partake in dual enrollment classes. A few of them have AP classes, but not nearly to the extent that my kids were able to do it. I mean, my kids could do it in every core subject. Here, it seems like it might be a class or two that they can do it, but they can't do it for, 5 subjects. It's really something that I do hope is picked up around here a little bit more, because 2 years of college without paying basically cuts your college debt in half. That will allow a student that couldn't normally afford to go to college to be able to. It also gives them the opportunity to work on their grades and apply for scholarships and be involved with the higher education system, where sometimes the counselors and stuff have access to things that they don't have access to at the high school level. Certain scholarships and grants and things like that. I could sit here and talk about dual enrollment forever, but it's not going to be the same as if you hear it from a student. There was a student in Georgia that did about a 45-minute presentation. We're just going to watch about 10 minutes of it, where he talks about the difference between dual enrollment and AP classes and why he chose dual enrollment.
Welcome to Dual Enrollment is a new AP. My name is Bharat Sanders, and I've been doing the dual enrollment program for 2 years, and I've gotten really great experiences through the program, so I just want to share that with everyone. So I'll have 2 years of college finished before I graduate high school, actually. I'm graduating high school in May of this year, at the end of May, and I'm graduating college 3 weeks before. So, if anything, that's an excellent reason to do dual enrollment. That's just super cool, you know? I mean, you have your college diploma, associate's degree 3 weeks before your high school diploma. So. I'll have my associate's degree in mathematics, and I'm also getting an honors diploma because I did the honors program at Georgia Perimeter College, and I have 30 plus honors credit hours. Some of my Georgia Perimeter achievements, these are some of the things that you can also achieve when you get there. I've gotten Student of the Semester from the Science Department. I was the youngest inducted member of Phi Theta Kappa Honors Society, and my highest math class, which I'm taking right now, is Calculus 3. So these are some of the achievements you can do while in dual enrollment, which aren't really available in high school. Yeah. I was accepted to Georgia Tech and UGA. I'm going to be attending Georgia Tech in the fall. I'm planning on majoring in biomedical engineering. So, and personally, I think that my dual enrollment education is what helped me to get into the college, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. My career plan, I'm planning on being a neurologist. I want to go to medical school after undergrad and study neurology. All right, so what is dual enrollment? For those of you who don't know, dual enrollment is a college class while you're still in high school. You can take it before, during, or after regular high school hours. So you can mix and match, figure out what works for you. You can even take classes online. So you can take them in your high school library. This thing is really touchy. There we go. Okay. You can take classes online. You can do those at home. You can do them at school, wherever you want. Or you can take classes on campus. The closest Georgia Perimeter campuses are Alpharetta campus and Dunwoody campus. Alpharetta campus is off of... Alpharetta campus is off of Old Milton Road, and Dunwoody campus is off of Tilling Road. And some of the sometimes they teach classes at your local high school. So you might want to check with your high school. They might teach an English class or basic accounting, things like that. They'll generally teach at the high school. So, and online classes are generally more challenging. You have to be more self-motivated if you want to take online classes because the teacher isn't there standing over you telling you have to do your work, right? So you have to be more self-motivated to do your own work by yourself. But I've found online classes to be very rewarding, and it's a lot more flexible as well. Because you have a whole week, the teachers give you an assignment, and these things are due at the end of the week. So you can do it all on Monday and have the whole week to be free, or you can spread it out however you want. But you have to schedule yourself, so you have to be more self-motivated. Dual enrollment is funded by... Go ahead.
The second program, the Move On When Ready, does that mean that you're, instead of going to the high school, you're going to go to college to take all of the classes?
Not exactly. Now, dual enrollment is funded by two programs, Excel and Move On When Ready. Excel means that you are taking classes both at your high school and at the college. Move On When Ready means that you're taking all your classes at the college. So you are kind of already in college, but you're still technically at your high school. So you can do those classes online, at home, on your high school, or you can do them on your college campus. There's some Move On When Ready programs where actually you can go and live on the campus, and I'll cover those later if you want to go to college early. And I did Excel for 1 year. I did one class at my high school. Just for fun, I did chorus, because all my friends were in chorus, and I did the rest of my classes in the college. And then this year I did Move On When Ready, so I took all my classes at Georgia Perimeter.
Which one is better?
Which one is better? Good question. It really depends on the student. So if the student wants to take classes in the high school and at the college, then Excel is your program. If you want to do all your classes in college, then Move On and Ready is your program. Move On and Ready is only available for 11th and 12th graders, whereas Excel is also available for 9th and 10th graders, but it's on a case-by-case basis.
Can you please repeat again?
Move On and Ready.
Say it again.
Move On and Ready is for only 11th and 12th graders, so juniors and seniors. Excel is for 9th through 12th grade, anybody in high school. But it's on a case-by-case basis, so that depends on your counselor and on different factors.
And those are the front ends.
Yeah. So those are the things that cover your tuition cost. And none of these... Can anybody get the tuition? I believe you have to have a 3.0 GPA, certain requirements. I'm going to put a web page up at the end. You can go and look at all the requirements. But anybody who meets those requirements is eligible. And both of these do not come out of your Hope Scholarship. Excel used to come out of the Hope Scholarship, but they do not anymore. So don't worry about losing Hope credits, things like that. So that's fine. And finally, a dual enrollment is a jump start on your college education and a faster track to your career. All right, fundamental differences between dual enrollment and AP. Question? Advanced placement is a high school class. So it's taught in your high school. It is a college level class, but it's a high school class taught by a high school teacher. It's college level material taught by high school teachers, whereas dual enrollment is college level material taught by college teachers, generally with their master's degrees, doctoral degrees, things like that. So they're generally a little bit more qualified. Now, it depends on the teacher, but really, on an average basis, the dual enrollment teachers are more qualified. In an AP class, the AP test is the one deciding factor on whether you get credit or not, and they are year-long classes. So you start in August, you finish in May, whereas a dual enrollment class, you start in August, you finish in December. You start again in January, you finish in May. So you can take 2 dual enrollment classes in the time you can take 1 AP class. Now, it's different for science classes because physics, AP Physics, they cover like Physics BC or C or AB. So those kinds of things they cover 2 semesters in one. But for things like economics, 1 economics class in high school takes a year, whereas it only takes a semester in college. So you can get a lot more college credits out of the way if you're doing it. And finally, a common misconception is that AP classes guarantee college admission. I've seen too many cases of kids who have done really well on AP classes and just didn't have enough time to handle extracurriculars and other things. So they didn't get into their first choice college. And they either got deferred, waitlisted, denied, things like that. So it's not a guarantee now. Neither is dual enrollment. You have to do well in either program. But AP makes it a little bit more difficult for you to handle because of the time commitment. Dual enrollment is a college class taught by college professors. The final exam can only be worth up to 25% of your grade, so if you do well in the whole class, you can still... the grade you get at the end of the class determines if you get college credit or not the end of your test. And semester-based learning. And finally, it shows initiative, which impresses colleges. If a college admissions officer reads your application and sees that you've gotten an associate's degree before you graduated from high school, they say, wow, that kid has initiative. He can handle college classes already. So they see that, and they really like that. So from my understanding, dual enrollment looks better on your application now. I may be wrong about this. It's just from my experience. Okay. So my experience with AP classes, they're extremely stressful. You get more homework. I've had friends studying until 2 o'clock in the morning and doing projects over the weekend, which I haven't had to do for 2 years. It's amazing. And a lot of tension due to the AP test. They start studying 1 or 2 months in advance, and if they have 4 AP classes, they have 4 tests to study for, and they're all in 2 weeks. And if you fail, you only get to take it again next year. There's no makeup test, and then which means next year you're going to be studying again. So there's a lot of tension due to that from the AP classes. And the teachers are less knowledgeable. Sometimes they're a little bit mean. Maybe they're kind of sad that they're teaching college classes and they're only high school teachers. I don't know. But I've seen that they're a little more they're a little less knowledgeable. And the social life, that's another question that a lot of people have. Now, let me ask you, if you're studying till 2 o'clock in the morning, do you have a social life? I mean, you can squeeze in the social life somewhere, find a little hour gap that you can write in your schedule, hang out with friends, but it's not as easy. My experience of dual enrollment, there's a lot less stress. I forgot I had notes, I'm looking at the slide. It's a lot less stress. The dual enrollment workload, what I've heard from people, AP Lit, they had to read like 4 or 5 books over the summer and then write reports on them, things like that. Usually they leave it till the last week and then they're doing it all night, pulling all-nighters. But dual enrollment, the College English 1 class, we read 1 book over the entire semester, plus we had some smaller selections from literature, like older literature. But there was no summer reading. There was no extra work that the teachers give you to keep you busy or something like that. Self-motivation and self-discipline are very important in the dual enrollment program. The dual enrollment, especially the online program, you have to focus more on your work because there's a lot more to think about on your own. In the in-class, there are teachers, of course, so they are helping you, but it is college, so the teachers expect you to know what you're doing. They expect you to be more responsible, and they're there to help you if you need their help. But they expect you to be a college student, even though you're in high school. And there's little to no homework in dual enrollment. Like I said before, my calculus teacher gives me homework. He provides the help if I need it, and he says all the questions on the quizzes and the tests will be from similar to the homework. But you don't have to do it if you don't want to. I'm not going to grade it. It's there as a resource for you. Homework is not busy work in college. And the teachers trust the students a lot more. Teachers are very knowledgeable. Like I said before, you can choose your own teachers, and that's through the registration process, and you can look online for reviews of your teachers. And if you get a bad teacher in college, you only have them for 4 months. In high school, you have them for 8 months, or for a whole year, an entire school year. The social life is different. Now you're gonna have to expect a little bit of a different social life. You're gonna be interacting with peers that aren't your own age. You're gonna have to start learning to talk to people who may be 10 years older than you, 20 years older than you. They might have kids. They might have grandkids. I was a group leader in my economics class, and the other people in my group all had kids or grandkids. So I had to learn how to lead them, and they respected me. They respected me because I was a college student. They knew I was 17, but there wasn't any issue there. So you definitely have a different social life, and of course you can still have your social life at your high school if you're taking Excel. You can do your classes at your high school, whatever fun classes you want to do, and then do the rest at college. Or you can even join sports in high school, or you can even do clubs in college. So a lot of options for social life in dual enrollment. You get a lot more real-world experience, wider range of peers, and you have longer breaks. Now this is a great one for the parents. You get off of dual enrollment over the summer. You get off on first week of May, so you can take your trip to wherever you want to go overseas and save $500 per ticket. and plus you start college back in the end of August, so you get 4 months, almost 4 months of break, summer break, and then Christmas, winter break starts at the first week of December and then ends in the first week of January, so you get a whole month there. And the only difference is that spring break. My spring break was last week, whereas the high school spring break is in April, so that's something you would have to work out if you have siblings in high school and college. You'd have to figure out how that was going to work. However, because of the flexibility provided by dual enrollment, you can, I'm still going to go somewhere over the high school spring break because I can finish all my classwork in the beginning of the week, and then we can go for a trip at the end. So that's something. Longer breaks, that's an excellent benefit. All right, why did I choose dual enrollment? I chose dual enrollment to get ahead on my college degree because I realized once you get into college, you can't really get ahead that much. You want to get involved in extracurriculars, you want to get involved in research, you want to do work, you want to co-op or whatever you want to do. But once you get to college, it's kind of hard to get ahead. High school seems like the only place to get ahead, especially if you want to go to graduate school. They have their focused curriculum, you'll be doing internships and all that stuff. So I wanted to get ahead as fast as I could, and when I found out about this program, I knew that was the way to go. of course, it's 2 years of college that are absolutely tuition free.
Dual enrollment, though it doesn't seem to really be a thing in Rhode Island, is in Massachusetts. There are probably about 20 schools involved in it that I found, including Framingham State University, Salem State University, Middlesex Community College, Mass Bay Community College, Holyoke Community College, and I could go on and give you a few more. They, at one point, created a short little video clip that tells you about the Massachusetts dual enrollment program and kind of gives you the student's point of view. So I'm going to share that clip with you now. I hope you enjoy it.
Want to get a head start in college?
I got a jump start in a way that definitely helped me. I think that that's really interesting, that I can go in as a junior and I don't have to feel confined. I definitely had that time to explore.
Want to save money?
I've only paid $1,223. If I didn't have any state funding or dual enrollment, I would have had to pay up to $19,000.
Want to get the feel of a real college campus and see how different college is from high school? The Commonwealth Dual Enrollment Program lets high school students enroll in college classes, earn credit towards a college degree, and even save cash for college.
I took college writing 1, I took psychology, and then I took statistics.
I just graduated with my associates in a business transfer degree, but I also got my certificate in accounting.
I got an associate's degree, which is like 60 credits, and now I can go to UMass Amherst as a junior, and that's amazing.
You qualify if you're a Massachusetts resident, you're a high school student, you pass a placement test, you have a cumulative 3.0 GPA, or can demonstrate your ability to succeed in college.
I got to experience college firsthand, and I now know that I really do want to pursue college, and I want to go for more than 4 years. You know, I probably will want to go for a doctorate.
Dual enrollment actually gave me the opportunity to go to college, get the experience, and get myself motivated and dedicated.
I now know how to go through a course, and I know how professors like to work with you and what works for me and how to study.
Here's how. Go to mass.edu/dual enrollment. Find a community college, state university, or UMass campus near you. Contact the dual enrollment coordinator and apply. Remember, dual enrollment students pay less, as much as 50% less, or even take the exact same courses college students take for free.
It really gave me the maturity and the dedication I needed to complete myself in a 4-year or plus school.
Now I know how to find opportunities at new schools and in new situations.
So, what are you waiting for?
I'm hoping by now you see that just because someone lives in a low-income area or goes to an urban school doesn't mean they shouldn't have access to the same level of education as someone in the suburbs or a rural area. Just because you come from a low-income family does not mean that you shouldn't have the same access as someone that comes from a high-income family. At the same time, I hope that you also see that money alone is not going to solve the problem. Abbott versus Burke was a school funding lawsuit in 1990, and due to this lawsuit, New Jersey increased funding to 31 of its poorest districts. They increased it so much that it caused national headlines, and as of April 2016, they were still spending 2.5 times the national average. But it's done nothing to help decrease the achievement gap. One of these districts in New Jersey, Camden, spent nearly $23,000 per student last year, but student performance is still far below average. Over 90% of the high school students are not proficient in language arts or math, and a third of their seniors do not graduate when they're supposed to. Low income does not need to mean a poor education. Just because someone lives in a low-income area or goes to a school that happens to be located in a low-income or urban area does not mean the education offered has to be subpar. Although money is always helpful, it is not what makes or breaks a good education. No matter who I spoke with at Brockton High School or what video I watched, everyone seemed to point in the same direction, right at the basics: reading, writing, and comprehension. These skills are not only skills used in education, but in life. If someone cannot read, the world becomes a really closed, dark place. They can't do basic things like order food off the menu of a new restaurant, help their kids do homework, or even get a job that's not completely physical labor. An increase in reading skills can not only help the student, but it can help improve the economy of the community, not to mention what it can do worldwide. Just with basic reading skills worldwide, we can decrease the poverty level by 12%. Yes, I said 12%. That's a huge decrease. And if we can get these same students to stay in school just one extra year, we can increase the gross domestic product by 0.37% and increase the student's own earnings by 10%. Let's think about that for a minute. That means for every $100 a student makes, they can earn an extra $10. So in Massachusetts, for example, if a 40-hour minimum wage worker stayed in school just 1 year longer, they could increase their income by $44 a week. That's $2,288 per year, and over the course of 10 years would be $22,880. Now you may be asking, how do we get these students to stay in school that extra year? Well, the answer is dual enrollment. With dual enrollment, maybe they're not physically at school for an extra year, but it's the equivalent of an extra 2 years of school. Dual enrollment offers college to kids at a free or discounted rate. This cut in fees can allow for a student that never thought college was in their future to accomplish a dream they never thought possible. We as members of higher education have to work with the elementary, middle, and high schools to ensure these students have the best possible chance in life. Just by making the choice to do something about the inequality in low-income schools, we can create a better future for us and for our children. I'd like to take a moment to thank Brockton High School's current principal, Sharon Walder, for helping me with this project. I sent her an email asking to come in and ask her a few questions, and she set me up with 4 different faculty members. I would also like to thank the faculty that freely gave me their time and answered all my questions, and at times even guided me on what to ask.